Steve Jobs, often seen as a genius, a visionary, and someone who changed the world with Apple. But what if I told you there's a lot more to his story? Today, I'm not just going to talk about the Steve Jobs you have heard about. I'm going to be revealing what no one has ever told you about Steve Jobs, his good, his bad, and most importantly, the lessons we can learn out of his legacy. This story is about resilience, innovation, and yes, imperfection. So let's dive in. Steve Jobs wasn't born into wealth or privilege. He was adopted by a middle-class family. His early life was marked by a lot of curiosity and rebellions. He dropped out of college after just one semester. But actually, he went for many more classes like calligraphy, tech, and the rest. We're going to start with the side of story no one ever told you about Steve Jobs. Number 1. Do you know that Steve Jobs denied his own daughter, Lisa? Yes, Steve Jobs denied his daughter, telling the mother that he was not the father of this child, even after a series of DNA tests. And mind you, this was the period whereby Apple was generating millions of dollars. And yet, Steve Jobs denied the fact that he had a daughter, even after numerous tests. Imagine the emotional disaster this could have caused to the daughter. Even though he later named one of his Apple computers after her name, Lisa. And at the long run, he finally accepted. Imagine the emotional disaster this caused to her and to her mother while growing up. This isn't a good trait at all. And the second aspect is the aspect of his personal hygiene. Steve Jobs was believed to be a strict fruitarian, and this made him believe that taking fruit was going to be able to stop body odor. And this made Steve Jobs stay days and weeks without taking beds. Even after receiving a lot of advice from co-workers, co-founders, and even parents, still yet he was unbothered. Imagine working with someone with such condition if you are going to survive it. And that flaws of Steve Jobs was his working environment. Steve Jobs seeked for perfection amongst his workers, and this made his workplace so toxic. He was ready to fire anybody that was not competent at sports. He never accepted correction, and he always wanted his ideas to be number one. This made a lot of persons to resign instantly. A lot of contracts were cut off because of his attitude. His workplace was so toxic that a lot of persons were willing to let go of such amount of money they were getting paid there just to have their peace of mind. Steve Jobs had issues of sidelining and backstabbing a lot of workers. For example, his co-founder Wozniak. Wozniak was an engineer and almost the sole house of Apple company, and a lot of ideas were patented from Wozniak. But Steve Jobs ended up sidelining him in most times and ended up taking the bigger aspect of the glory of Apple company. Steve Jobs was a backstabber. Steve Jobs was known to take credit of ideas that never belonged to him. He always presented himself as the sole idea behind Apple company, not minding the fact there was a co-founder, Wozniak, whose ideas are one of the essential seeds that yielded Apple to what it is today. Alright, now let's shift gear and let's look into what made Steve Jobs the legend that he is today. Despite his flaws and weaknesses, there is no denying that Steve Jobs was a genius. One of his greatest strengths was resilience. After being fired from the company that he founded, Apple, he went into Next, a company that was pivotal to the growth of Apple company in the future. And after that, he bought Pixar. Pixar is an animation studio that produced a lot of animation stories that made millions of dollars many years ago. So Steve Jobs was someone that was resilient despite passing through different circumstances of life. Still yet, he knew what he wanted, he never gave up. He had a true spirit of a hustler, and he's someone that you should always look up to when it comes to hustling. And here's the thing. Steve Jobs isn't a builder, a programmer, or an engineer. Steve Jobs was simply a storyteller and a seller. He was so brilliant at bringing people together. He knew how to look out for the best talent, and this made Apple had one of the best talents many years ago, and up to today, the legacy still continues. He had knack for finding the right people and pushing them to unleash their best. And truly, he was really good at leading people, and this really showed evidence at the amount of profit Apple made in a period whereby money was really scarce. Steve was a marketing genius. He didn't just sell products, he sold dreams. His product launches were very legendary. He made people believe that Apple wasn't just a company, but a lifestyle. He created a loyal fan base that still thrives till today. Steve Jobs was a great marketer, and he knew how to get the right talent to produce what he has in his mind. Steve Jobs always had his ways around people, and no matter what that he needed, when he needed loan, he got it. When he needed support, he got it. He always have his ways around selling himself, selling his ideas, and he was not intimidated by any means. He had a real definition of a bold and serious entrepreneur. You know the funny part? Steve Jobs was really a very simple young man. Steve Jobs had no flashy cars, had no flashy house, had no extravagant lifestyle. The beautiful part of this is that his room had no furniture, no single item there, just a bed and then a frame of Apple logo. Isn't that so strange? He was so simple, and this reflected in his designs. Minimalist designs, beautiful, yet very simple and plain. So with this, what can we learn from Steve Jobs today? Resilience. No matter how many times life knocks you down, always determined to stand up and fix yourself. We can look at this into the life of Steve Jobs, who was fired from the company he established, yet he didn't give up. He went ahead to found other companies, eventually still came back to Apple and got the highest shares and restored the glory that we are enjoying today in Apple technologies. And secondly, Steve Jobs was very bold. Now, to succeed in this life, you need to be bold. Most of the opportunities that came to Steve Jobs was because he was able to sell himself, he was able to speak to unknown people, he was able to navigate himself into people. He was a good salesman because of what? He had boldness. A lot of persons they have talents, they have the ability to negotiate, they have the ability to convince, but they don't have the boldness to actually go into the field and unleash their inner potentials. So Steve Jobs had this boldness, despite the fact that he had a lot of flaws that made him look bad, but still yet he had a lot of amazing attributes in himself. Another thing is to follow your passion. Steve Jobs once says, the only way to do great work is to love what you do. He believed that passion fuels persistence, and it's reflected in Steve Jobs' lifestyle. Learn to embrace failure. And that's thing I can learn from the life of Steve Jobs was the act of embracing failure. Steve Jobs was someone that was fired from his own company. He didn't commit suicide, he didn't give up, he didn't embark on strategies to kill his life, but still yet he moved on. He accepted the fact that he messed up, he accepted the fact that he has lost his company and went ahead in building other companies, and in the long run, he still got back his company. Steve Jobs was a man of contradictions. He was a very deep spiritual man, but lacked empathy. He demanded perfection, but he was not perfect. He could be both inspiring and frustrating at the same time. But yes, he showed us that you don't need to be perfect to make impact in life. You need to be resilient, bold, and unafraid to challenge the status quo in this life. Alright, let me know in the comment section, what's the most surprising thing you've learned about Steve Jobs that you have not heard about before? And what's one lesson from his life that you're going to apply in your life starting from today? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you'll be updated